All right, man. We'll just get started now. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the late night edition of Crypto World Radio. My name is King Lobby. Thank you for tuning in to the Bitcoin Spaces. I'm here joined by our buddy Payne, good friend of the show. And today's just going to be more of a casual community space, but we will have people coming in at the second half of the show, and we're just going to talk general crypto market talk and DeFi. So, without further ado, I want to remind you guys, if you're not able to stick to the entire space, there will be a replay 5 to 10 minutes after we're concluded with the space up on our YouTube channel. So feel free to catch up with any spaces that you miss right over there. And like I've said, all because Bitcoin content will be pushed via Twitter Spaces, and all of those spaces will be broadcasted at the same time via YouTube live stream. So be sure to check that out, and be sure to give some feedback if you'd like, good or bad. Doesn't really matter. Any feedback is good feedback. And that bell notification when you follow us here on Twitter, so you can be made aware when these spaces go live. Especially with my show, it's typically very volatile. Sometimes it can be a little bit earlier, a little bit later than 7 p.m. Eastern time, which is the time that I would like to push. So without further ado, before we get started, I want to encourage anybody here, if you want to come up and join the conversation, feel free to do so. Just click that like, request to speak, and I'll bring you right up, and we'll talk all things on DeFi. Without further ado, let's get on the road. What's going on, my man? How are you doing today, brother?
Doing good, man. How about yourself?
I'm chilling, man. I'm excited for this week. I think tomorrow's FOMC is going to be a telltale sign for how the rest of Q1 is going to turn out to be, man. But I'm sort of neutral. I kind of think it'll be a mixture of 2019 and 2015. But ultimately, I believe that parabolic move up, where BTC goes up 100% plus off the lows, will likely be the second half of 2023. I think at this point it'll probably be like range bound and not really surpass 28K first half, but if it does, cool. I'm looking more towards the second half of 23. I think January has been absolutely awesome. If you've been bullish, it's despite what others might say. And I'm seeing some very similar action from what we saw in the summertime, where Bitcoin and ETH kind of top out before the rest of the market. You're seeing alts kind of catch that last leg up. Aptos completely topped out at $20. To be honest, that was so gnarly. That wick on KuCoin,
Yeah.
right at $20, dude. It's always the KuCoin wicks that always form those tops and bottoms. So
One thing
now that
that's
Aptos is in distribution, go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say one thing that's like slightly worrying as far as we're talking about like being a little toppy, is that I think we're at the stage now where like how the rotation goes, like first the majors pump and then the alts pump and then like and then it usually ends with the dog coins, right? And like people just hunting for like anything that hasn't pumped. And that usually signals that we're like either gonna range a little bit or have like a correction of some sorts. And I saw Doge up a lot today, and it seems like a lot of dog coins are pumping. So I'm kind of I took a little bit off the table from some of my alt bags, but ultimately I'm still just holding because I most of my buys were like from December. I just like I've said on the show before, I've just had like ETH, Aave, and Matic pretty much, and then I got some Rollbit and some other things that I think have a really good like narrative or potential to do really well in the coming like 6 to 12 months. And yeah, I think right now it's just like it's time to go on chain and it's time to look at stuff on Arbitrum, Canto. It's just it's basically time to get into the trenches. And I think you're gonna make a lot of gains if you find basically narratives and coins as soon as they're popping up. And just it's definitely gonna be one of those years I think where it pays to be curious. If I think people who like go out of their way to bridge and like interact with all these new protocols are probably going to be rewarded through airdrops or just being early. And so I've basically just anytime I hear about anything new lately, I've just been trying to test it out and see what goes, see what happens. So yeah,
To your point on Rollbit, man, I'm really big on what they're trying to do. Include sports betting with crypto, and they'll probably include something like prediction markets as well. But they're only on Solana, right?
yeah,
And I think if they pull off some sort of cross chain token or whatever where they can also be on ETH. I don't think that's really like possible, to be honest. Happy to be proven wrong,
I think it could
but
definitely happen. I mean, there was tons of tokens last cycle that were on like BSC and ETH, and they basically just have separate
yeah,
liquidity pools, but basically trade at
that's
the
when the
same
real that's
prices.
like when I think that's when like the real value capture happens, especially with the things that Ethereum has done. I know they've done prediction markets with Augur, and the Ethereum community is pretty big on like governance proposals. And so, if they end up merging over to Ethereum, you can have a situation where not only do you capture more of an audience, but you're also able to add more on those innovations. So, like with Rollbit, right? One thing they can take into account from what Ethereum has done is add things like prediction markets and also perhaps like probably this is kind of like out there, but betting on liquidations, and I believe that's something that Terra wanted to do via their White Whale platform and also Kujira. This is like Terra V1 stuff, but essentially, like the idea is, what if you were able to like quote unquote bet with leverage on whether or not like this wallet or participants within the ecosystem would get liquidated or would make a killing? Does that make sense?
No, yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah. And I wonder, like, if your bet actually comes through, you were able to sort of like earn a derivative of said token. So instead of earning RLB, you'll probably earn like a liquidation token.
Well,
But
that's kind of what
the thing
GMX
with
does
that,
a little bit.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So something like that, and I got off the phone with the guys from GMX, and I'm really excited for what they're gonna bring to the table over here because Bitcoin's gonna be really cool. I see we have Avocado Toast. I'm gonna bring him up to speak. Really enjoyed speaking with him. So you'll send you an invite, Avocado, by the way. So with that being said, I think like you could probably even add some sort of NFT element to it, and that's the cool thing about Ethereum. Like, especially with these L2s, they're always trying to add some sort of like innovation to it. You know what I
For
mean? Like
sure.
last cycle, last cycle, it was all about like how can everyone access 100x leverage, right? Oh, I see we have Lieutenant Ponzi. Wow, haven't seen him in a long time. I'll bring him up. So last cycle, it was all about how do we get derivatives in the hands of everybody, right? And I think for the next cycle, I think it'll be like, how do we get, as far as the derivatives aspect goes, I'm not talking about like the broader ecosystem like Web3 and GameFi. That's a completely separate market in my opinion. But when it comes to derivatives, I think like the next narrative would probably be, how could an individual bet on liquidations, right, or succession, right? And perhaps even like another market where how do I put this into words? But you're able to somehow like long vol on dexes, and I think you're only able to do that on something like Deribit. So I think something like that would be pretty cool. And there can always be like a token behind it, but like the thing is like the token model still has to be worked out, right? So like the token that you would earn from winning your bet, right, that, oh, this person's going to get liquidated, this person's going to win his position. I think you would run into an issue where the tokens would just be like just a farm. It's sort of like the next generation of farming, And while farming does have its place, I think we're definitely going to see some sort of like new feature to things like farming. What do you think?
No, yeah, I think so too. I think they're gonna have to find a way to like I think real yield will probably be a pretty big narrative. And I mean it kind of already is, but as the cycle progresses, I think considering everything that happened last cycle, people are gonna be more cognizant of like where the yield is coming from, and they're not going to just because like most of the yield is just tokens that are inflationary, right? It's not real yield. It's just like you know just pure Ponzi-nomics. And so something like GMX is pretty cool because you're actually it's actually producing revenue. So I think revenue producing protocols is going to be pretty big, and I think there's going to be a lot of creative ways that we haven't seen yet that people are going to come out and drop, and so it's something to pay attention to for sure. That's why I do like Rollbit because I mean, I think it's only like 50 million market cap or something, and they're making like 3 million a month in revenue, which is like that's pretty objectively undervalued considering like the FDV is 50 million, right? So I mean, dude, that's pretty gem. That's a pretty gem status in my opinion. And there's like every normie I know is already sports betting, and you basically it's like an all-in-one casino, and they have 1000x leverage, right? And so there's all sorts of shit. Like also when you get liquidated, right? They have like instant liquidity pools for NFTs, and so you can just like sell your NFTs instantly to keep gambling essentially. And I'm just like, dude, this is gonna just attract so many normies in a bull market. I don't see any way that this doesn't run.
Yeah, and I'm also bullish on Aave V3 going live on its mainnet coming up. There's going to be things like reduced gas and also the reduced rate of interest on your loan. And when you have little things like that, and also what they're going to do with their GHO stablecoin, and sort of like have that feature that GMX has, where individuals can build on top of Aave, and sort of like what occurred on Terra V1, where devs were able to build on top of Anchor for things like their yield and all that stuff. I think that's going to bring a lot of value capture for the Aave platform, especially when it pertains to TVL. And I think like if you have Aave accruing value, you're also going to have the liquid staking derivatives narrative with Ethereum kickoff. And like I think next cycle it's going to be sort of like a panic to buy Ethereum, because I think a lot of it is going to flow into these LSD type projects, especially with things like Obel Network. But we'll get into that. We'll get into that another time. But I want to welcome up the stage to Avocado Toast. What's going on, man? How are you feeling today? What do you see in the markets?
Hey, Wabi. Yeah, good, feeling good. Um, yeah, I don't know if you want me to talk about markets, but I mean, I kind of agree with what you said about the LSD narrative. I mean, I feel like next cycle, if we do get like a really good infrastructure and like kind of lineup of LSD tokens and derivatives out there. I feel like, your staked ETH and all of the other kind of top LSDs are going to become like the unit of account basically for like protocols. So, instead of like going to lock up your ETH or transacting in ETH, all the Ponzi's basically are going to be taking in, and being built on top of LSDs rather than ETH itself. Because I mean, people are going to want to lock up their ETH to get that yield, and then use those that LSD to then go speculate further and get further yield and further price appreciation on that. So it's almost like you could basically take that 4 or 5%, whatever it is that ETH staking yield is, and then just kind of almost like loop that by taking derivatives and then going into the next generation Ponzi's, whatever they might be, for next cycle. So maybe you've got like a real yield Ponzi of some kind, and they take a liquid stake derivative, and so you're kind of getting the yield of that Ponzi plus the the real yield kind of yield from your ETH staking. So I feel like that could be kind of a bit of a new meta, and then if you kind of add on top of that the fact that if Eigenlayer comes out and all of the kind of ability that gives you to almost like restake and rehypothecate your ETH to do a whole bunch of things, I feel like that opens up like a huge amount of possibilities with kind of restaking across different protocols and different Ponzi's, if you want to call it that. So I don't even, it's kind of hard to envision even how it's going to unfold, but I mean, that's kind of quite different and interesting for next cycle. It's kind of my thoughts about where it's going.
Do you think there's going to be a sort of like a token that's a leverage bet against all the Ethereum that's going to be staked? I know there's STETH, right? But as far as like you know how there's these index tokens, right? Like you have the DeFi Pulse index token, you have the Metaverse index token. Do you think there's going to be sort of like a token that takes all of these values, right, from things like Lido and also Obel Network when they come out with their stuff? And do you think there's going to be something where individuals won't necessarily have to stake their Ethereum, but perhaps they can get a token that follows the TVL, sort of like a DeFi Pulse sort of token? Or do you think this is going to be sort of like a free for all, like layer ones, where there's not like a token that gets value accrual from the usage of, say, like Avalanche and Near and all those stuff, but they're individual tokens. Like if you want to bet on AVAX, then you get the AVAX token. How do you think that's going to work out?
I don't know. I feel like I can't see that far, but I mean, I feel like ETH layer one is pretty dominant at this point, and with the L2s, a lot of the transactions are going to be there. I mean, I guess Cosmos, I feel like, is a pretty big competitor also, but I mean, I feel like with a lot of the ZK layer twos coming on board, that it's kind of going to detract from attention towards alt L1s. So I don't even know if so I feel like the LSD narrative will just be strong because of that, but yeah, I don't know exactly to answer your question there, and I can't quite see that far.
How about yourself, Payne? How do you see this playing out? Do you think it's sort of going to be like a free for all for market share, or do you think we're going to have a token that's sort of like a leverage bet with all the Ethereum that's being staked across these platforms?
I think that there'll probably be some kind of token like wherever, as new protocols come out and there's more and more places to stake your ETH. There's going to be like different tokens that absorb that value per se. But to be honest, I think that you're probably just better off betting on ETH than just trying to pick which one is gonna, like, ETH itself, rather than just trying to find which one is gonna, have the most stakers. Because I mean, there's Lido. I mean, the obvious ones that I think are all gonna do really good is like Lido's. They have the most staked ETH, and I think they're gonna be a big winner. But besides them, I would probably just buy ETH itself because ETH is just going to absorb all that market share, right, of all these different people that are trying to stake. And, the staking yield that you get from ETH is real yield. And I think as more and more people discover that, like the whole, you just get 32 ETH and you can run up a node narrative and, see how easy it is to basically do that. I think a lot of people next cycle are going to be, you know, piling in to buy 32 ETH so they can have a node, and there's they're gonna realize, oh wait, this is giving me more yield than like U.S. Treasury bills or something in a raging bull market, and they're probably gonna stake it with these protocols like Lido or maybe even Coinbase, and it's just gonna absorb that value, and it will end up being a pretty good play. Um, but yeah, I think Lido is probably that leveraged bet that you're talking about. I think that's probably the most obvious winner.
Possibly, it's sort of like when Rune came out. It was sort of like this underground sort of ecosystem that nobody really wanted to get into. So maybe like the new bet on liquidity would be something like Lido, where it's a bet on like the amount of not necessarily liquidity, but the amount of liquidity that's locked, if that makes sense. So it's like inverse Thorchain, right? If you were to best describe it. So let's get to the second topic. So I know this isn't really like sort of like a macroeconomic space, but tomorrow is FOMC, and I'm of the belief that Powell is just going to do 25 basis points, and it's going to be like a sell the news event. We're going to rip, and then probably distribute towards the end of the week, and then probably have like our first meaningful pullback. That's what I think. What about yourself, Avocado?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at kind of like all of what the different banks are predicting, and pretty much every single one, except for like one outlier, is predicting like 25 basis points. Like some second tier bank or something is predicting 50. So yeah, so I'm pretty sure that, and plus, if you look at kind of the predicted rates in the market, 25 bips is pretty sure. So I don't see any surprise there. So it's really just going to come down to what does Powell sound like. Like the market usually latches onto like a few key phrases that he says a lot of times. Like like after the Q&A, there'll be like a turning point in the market based on like a certain sentence or couple sentences. If he sounds very hawkish or very very dovish. So I think it's hard to say how they're going to spin it. I think that I mentioned this last night, but I think that article in the Wall Street Journal the other night is kind of what they're trying to convey to the market ahead of time, just to get everybody prepared, which is that rates, like that terminal rate is going to be higher for longer than expected. So maybe that could be 12 months basically at kind of at peak rates. So we'll have to see. Is the market expecting that, and will it sell off if that's kind of made explicit by Powell? But yeah, that's kind of how I view it for tomorrow.
Yeah, I think there's probably like, as much as I would like to see this rally continue, I think at this point there's probably more potential negative catalysts than positive ones, because you know everyone's expecting 25 BPS, right? And so if we end up getting 25, then the chances that we just sell by default, if we're climbing the whole day up leading into the speech, then that's probably a pretty significant chance that we just like continue, um that we just like dump from there. And so I think the only situation where we would actually just like turbo rip to 4,300 or something would be if he pauses rates, which is like very, very, very unlikely. And, or if he, does 25, but then in the Q&A says that, we're making lots of progress. We like, if he alludes to this being the last rate hike, if he kind of has very dovish sentiment, then I think we could maybe get some more upside. But I'm just kind of like, it seems like people are pretty euphoric, and like everyone just sentiment wise is just just straight dunking on the Bears, and we just got a month straight of up only. And I think a lot of people made a lot of money this month, and so it's not a bad time at all to like take some off the table leading into the speech. I think um especially some of these just random alts, and stuff that you're up like many multiples on. It's always a good idea to not like have pretty big positions holding through the speech. And so that's kind of what I did today, is I just took some off the table, because I'm not really trying to play because I mean, at the end of the day, you're just straight gambling if you're like leveraged long or something into the speech. I've seen how that goes, and it's if you're on the wrong side of that, dude, you can get weeks of gains erased real quick. And so it's always better to like take a position after the Q&A, in my opinion.
Yeah, so here's what makes me not like, if you think about like asymmetry, like is it better to be, like long, short, or just neutral? I feel like it's pretty stretched in, the direction of the fact that the market's rallied so much. So like some pretty crazy stats are that January was basically I think January was the um, largest kind of gain in the Nasdaq, I think, since like 2001, I believe. So it was like the strongest start to the year in 20 some years, right? So that's pretty absurd.
Yeah.
Secondly, we've got put premiums now are like at the cheapest they've been in like 3 years, I think. So basically, nobody's hedging. Well, not nobody's hedging, but hedging
Everyone's
is the market's not
underhedged.
so concerned about
Yeah.
hedging. Yeah, everyone's under hedge. Market's not too concerned, and the VIX is still under 20. So feels, I feels kind of not prudent to like bet that this trend's going to continue and to basically not take chips off the table or hedge somehow at this point.
Yeah, there was a couple times last year where I was like had a big position on ETH like into the speech, and it's just it never, you're just straight gambling. Like it worked really well for me one time, and then during Jackson Hole, I took a big L. And so you just never know. Like you're just straight gambling if you have like a big leverage position into the speech, like I said. And so I think definitely just see what he says and play it by ear, and then you can probably take some positions. But it'll be interesting to see. I've entertained the idea of like crypto having lower beta to the downside and higher to the upside. So I'm interested to see if SPX does dump pretty hard, how BTC and ETH are going to react. Um, that'll be very interesting to see because I do think this rally probably does have some legs, and like it's probably good that we pulled back a little bit and didn't just rip through 24K because a healthy pullback when like I'm looking at the daily right now and like you basically could have longed at any single point in the last like 30 days and made money. And whenever you get into a situation like that, it's just like the probability that that trend continues, right, is just gets smaller and smaller after every day. And so, like I had fun running up a bunch of altcoins and stuff during this month, but now I'm good. I'm just gonna take some off the table and wait and see what happens.
Have you guys ever toyed with crypto options? I wonder how that's like, man. I've never used
I've only traded perps. I know Susie has tried to get us to mess with options a little bit, but I've never traded like call options on BTC or ETH personally.
yeah, like things like what Avocado said, like put premiums being the cheapest they've ever been when it comes to the U.S. equity markets. And I see we actually have somebody, Professor Satoshi, and he works over at it in their options platform. If you feel like coming up, dude, I'll send you an invite if you want, and perhaps we can talk like how these options work and if there's any sort of alpha to be seen in that sort of derivative market, as you do in the U.S. equity market. I have zero idea how that kind of stuff works. So, Professor Satoshi, I've invited you to speak. Feel free to come up, brother. So, do you guys think NFTs would be would be like available for these sort of markets, dude? Like the options market on NFTs, man. Wouldn't that be something? That would be quite wild to see, man.
I
Because
don't know how
if there
that would
if
work. There,
this industry will shock you, man. We're talking like Rollbit right now is getting like a significant amount of attention, and props to them, 1,000x leverage on sports betting. People are willing to go for it, and something that that the industry was talking about as far as the trading community, like the inner circle trading community called CT, right, as people like to call it. Um, there was always an itch for sports betting, always, right? It went from being bored in 2018 and going on Forex and leaving crypto for a while. And then come 2021, during the summertime, people were like, man, isn't there like some sports betting platform on crypto? You know, the first platform that does that with high leverage is going to attract like so many new people. So it's sort of this second coming of BitMEX, but in another box, right? In another box. And you're sports betting. You're not really playing like the chart, so to say. So,
Well,
um,
it has both.
yeah,
You can. It's not like you can just straight play charts and you can sports bet. They're like completely separate, but it's all in the same account. So that's why I think it's pretty bullish because you might like send crypto over there because you want to like take a bet on some NFL game, right? And then you win the bet, and now you want to take it and trade 1000x leverage. So I'm just thinking, bro, like there's so many retailers that are gonna want to try that out. Like, oh my god, 1000x leverage, and they're probably gonna see the screenshots on Twitter of people and their P&Ls, like, oh, I turned $80 into 3 grand, like shit like that. Dude, I'm long that. I bet there's so many people that are gonna try that out and ultimately get wrecked, which produces revenue for the token. So
the
Yeah,
utility, man.
it's like the perfect use case for crypto, right? Like, I
right,
mean, the first use case of Bitcoin was like what, like Silk Road. It's it's always something like underground that's like really regulated that people can't like get easy access to. Has a lot to do with just like vices and addiction. So like it's kind of like the perfect it's like the perfect use case.
Yo, I just wanted to jump in. Thanks for inviting me up about the options. Um, yeah, Avocado, I like your post, by the way. That's why I saw this spaces and I wanted to tune in to see what you had to say because I think you had some spot on calls lately. Um, with regards to options in crypto, so I've been trading on Deribit for like 6 years, mainly selling options. The implied vols for the weekly options in crypto. I don't really trade equities, so it might be super low in equities. But for crypto, they actually spiked up a little bit. Like you can see, if you're an options trader, you can go on Deribit, or if you just want to look at the data, it's on Levitas. Um, it's a little bit expensive to hedge right now, and there's definitely people who've been buying put hedges like straight up like 1,000 contracts. Like it's pretty weird flows. Normally, you don't see that much activity in a bear market. But that being said, like usually when everyone's buying puts, um, I remember back when I used to work at Morgan Stanley, like one of the bottom indicators is like when everyone's buying puts, and I see a lot of put buying activity. I actually picked up some like really degenerate like 0.2 DTE, like it expires tomorrow basically. Like 1450 strike ETH puts. They're relatively cheap because there's no theta on it, which is like the time component of the option value. But like if there's gonna be any volatility, it's gonna be after like you guys said, after the presser when J Powell talks. I think everyone agrees it's like gonna be probably 25 bips. I don't think he's gonna deviate from that, but usually it's like when he when he talks afterwards in the pressers, usually when like you have more volatility because he might give some forward guidance on you know um, having like a higher terminal rate for a longer period of time maybe, and then the market has to price that in. But we'll see afterwards. I did actually buy puts for tomorrow. That is how I'm playing this, at least with options.
so are those puts pretty cheap right now?
No, I mean, they're cheap in the sense that it's because there's no theta value to it. It literally expires
Yeah,
tomorrow. So like I don't really have any, let's say like, the market decides to be bullish immediately and then like bearish on Thursday and Friday, like after they realize like, oh shit, actually this is like way worse than what we had originally planned, then I'm fucked. Because there's no, there's people, only like degenerate retail traders would buy like less than like 7 DT, which if you don't trade options means days to expiration. But that's the stuff that's like the most fun, and that's also the stuff that's like the most volume even in equities right now. But yeah, I don't have a strong opinion. Another way to go about it is you can straddle this. So straddle is like you long both a call and put when you have absolutely no idea what's going to happen, but you just know that this is going to explode like one way or the other. It is an expensive play though, because you have to buy basically options to express both upside and downside vol. But I think in cases like this, especially for FOMC, which happens like every 6 weeks, it's a pretty good bet, even though like it's expensive to put on, because as long as you cut the losing side like immediately after, you usually capture a decent spread because like price action just keeps falling and then or rising, and then one of your options is going to basically get blown the fuck up, and then the other option, the other call or put, like basically will be a runner. Have done that a couple times, and it's a pretty good play for macro events, whether it's CPI or FOMC. Just know that it's a little more expensive of a play. Like you have to lay out more premium.
Geez, man, that was quite an introduction. Well, first and foremost, I want to welcome you up to our spaces here because Bitcoin. And not sure if you've been following us for a while or not, but it's great to have you up here, man. We have had a guest before, sort of talking the same language that you are. His name is Susie. And, I think perhaps in the future, maybe in the next week or two, we can have like a collab space where we have yourself and also Zuzi, and we can learn more about this type of the derivative market with you guys, man. It's always interesting to learn new parts of the digital asset space, man. How long have you been within the asset space, man?
Yeah, that spaces sounds interesting. Let me know. I might be going on a ski trip, but let me know. I'll try to make it happen. I've been trading crypto options since Deribit came out in like 2016. That was when I bought my first Bitcoin, and mainly they were like Bitcoin options on there at the time. Very, very horrible liquidity, terrible spreads. But that's just what the case was back then, because it was pretty new. And now it's just like it's pretty good liquidity, lots of market makers on there. And most recently, I think in September, what's exciting about the option space for crypto is that Bybit introduced a USDC-based option product. So what was really weird back in 2016 for me to learn, because I used to trade equities like prior to converting full-time crypto, is that like you have to be long spot BTC and ETH, which is like constantly fluctuating. It could be up and down 30% in a day. You just wake up, it's like, oh, okay, my account's 30% less now. The 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 profit is calculated on Deribit in terms of BTC or ETH, and it took a while to get used to. Whereas now with Bybit, if you do want to be denominated in USDC, you can kind of convert yourself over as a equities option trader, and then kind of get a pretty easy understanding of what's going on. Because it's super weird when you have to like first trade Bitcoin options, that's the underlying, and then like the P&L is also in BTCs. It's a little weird.
So it's basically like how BitMEX used to be in a way where your collateral denomination was mostly in Bitcoin, yeah?
Yeah. So like the effects of let's say like you're short a put and BTC just nukes, that is like a double compounding effect against your account's equity, because like not only you're short the put, like now you're losing the dollar value of BTC, and also like you're losing BTC itself. But then it works the opposite way too. Like when you're long a call and BTC just goes on a runner for like a month like this, you get both more BTC and then basically more USDC. It's I don't know if I'm explaining that. It sounds
No, that
basic.
makes perfect sense.
Now that I'm saying it, and I'm like, wait, that sounds really easy to understand. But it was really hard for me to grasp at first.
So would you
Jeez, man, I want.
trade? Would you like now that Bybit has a platform that's just USDC? Would you rather trade something like that?
That's such a good question. So here's what I would do now. Like, if you think that we are in like a market regime where things are going to just slowly trend up, or like you think you've caught generally the bottom, I would actually be long spot, especially if you think that you've DCA'd the bottom, and trade on Deribit, where you basically are assuming that like the underlying is going to appreciate, and also you can generate alpha through trading options, but either by selling options for yield, which you guys might know, like there's a lot of options protocols that like sell options for yield now. And then if you think that we're in a bear market, I would actually be in on Bybit because it's like USDC based, and like for the most part you probably want to be in cash, right, during a bear market, and then you just take either directional or non-directional options strategies on there.
And I want to thank you for taking the time out of your night or day with us to come up and talk some shop, man. Some really valuable stuff here, dude. Do you usually do spaces a lot, or is this sort of like a here and there sort of stuff?
Yeah, I actually I used to do like Twitch streams to talk like options or just like markets with some people in my Discord community. But now I think like I'm switching over to more to like Twitter, because like space is just so much more cool, and like there's more, I don't know. I like the crypto Twitter crowd more.
Yeah, me too.
Understandable,
I
man.
think the algorithm really works in your favor too on CT when you're holding spaces. Like you always meet someone that you know someone you follow is following them, and vice versa. And the ability to network is just like unprecedented. There's no other app for crypto at least where you can truly like congregate with what feels like the whole industry. But I wanted to ask you a little more about options, like because I noticed that like a lot of people, when they're trying to like make up charts and basically predict, anticipate where the price is going to go, they look at options. Like during market talk with Brandon, right, who or Carter, who looks at, like he primarily looks at options premiums to decide like what positions he's going to take. So I was curious, like, do you look at like options premiums to indicate like if you're bearish or bullish, or do you kind of just like look at charts and like look at other types of signals like open interest and stuff or whatever it may be?
I think that's an interesting question. I would say like the premium itself can expand like in periods of volatility, and that just means that like people are, you could really, you like if there's a really like a whale on Deribit, you can increase the premium of an option by just like purely expressing your view by buying that option, and then like the IV is going to increase, and then the premium of that option is going to increase, and you're going to see that curve, whatever, 30 DTE, 2 months out, quarterly, weekly, whatever it is, that curve is going to see like a little bit of a spike. But I generally don't use that as like an indicator. I like seeing like you'll normally see options flows that are pretty normal, and then out of nowhere you'll see like maybe like a $2 million notional like directional bet on like puts or calls, and then you can see like who's the aggressor of that option, whether it's if someone sold it. If someone sold it, that probably means like if it's a call, then they probably mean that that price is not going to hit. Or if they sold a put, they think that Bitcoin is like not going to go below that price. And depending on the notional size, like you can probably have decent level of conviction that if someone has $2 million worth of conviction that Bitcoin is not going to go below, this put strike price or go above this call strike price. Maybe they know something you don't. And this was especially like the case in 2020 to 2021. And by the way, Levitas has his data. I don't work for them. I'm not even partnered with them. Maybe one day. But they have this data, and like they even have a Discord, and you can basically sift through this data yourself to pick out these trades. Like
What's
in
it called?
2020, 2021, Levitas, Levitas. Might have butchered it, but you'll probably find it.
No, it's all good. Appreciate it.
Yeah, like before, especially with Elon Musk, like when he got into crypto, whenever he said stuff about like, or whenever like Tesla would have like an announcement or something, right? I would notice such strange options flows like 1 or 2 days before, and they're huge bets, like millions of dollars of notional. So I'm like, someone definitely knows something, and I would just blindly follow, and then you would not believe it, but like whatever they just like, let's say it's like it's a bullish call. I don't remember the exact trades, but it was both up and down at both times when Elon was involved. Like I would just blindly follow these like huge trades in options because someone probably knows something. Like it's crypto, so I just blindly follow. Not as big as like $2 million, $4 million notional bet, but which with a much smaller size. It's kind of like the Nancy Pelosi Twitter account, I guess. Like those politicians
Oh
in the
yeah.
U.S. have it's kind of like that. I don't recommend like putting full size to these things, but in crypto, you kind of have to have like that tinfoil hat on at times and be like, maybe someone actually does know
No, it's pretty
something.
left curve, but it makes sense. It's like
It is 100% left curve, but sometimes like I know I'm not on the right side of the curve, so I know I need to be more left curvy in my
it's much easier to
crypto
be left than
endeavors.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So with Aave V3, people get to borrow more and also, of course, not get pegged on the interest rate as much. That's going to create more speculation. And also, whatever's going on with Rollbit and the potential for them bridging over to Ethereum, I think we're going to have an influx of TVL be created within Ethereum. I think you're going to have that wave that's still messing in derivatives. I think they're going to start going on chain, but I'm taking that into the second half of 2023. I think first half of 2023 is going to be, similar to what we saw last summer with some remnants of 2019. But I think at some point within the second half of 23, my guess is late Q4. I think you're going to see a run in TVL, and I think it's going to come from the individuals that are in centralized derivs and of course sideline stables. I think they're going to go into all of these ecosystems that are coming out with all of these updates and potentially more stuff regarding LSDs. And we only have 5 minutes left for the show, guys. If anyone wants to come up and give some statements or any questions, feel free to do so. Otherwise, we'll start wrapping up. Bashar, I know you came up to request, so we'll let you go, brother. What's going on, man? It's been a while. Good to have you here, bro. What do you see in the markets?
What's up, Wabi? What's up, everybody? I couldn't make it earlier today, man. It was, I don't know, man. Yeah, I believe my own prediction of my analysis of what I see from the markets right now this year. The first half would be, I don't know, man. I'm expecting a little bullish movement. Honestly, not a little by any means. I'm expecting some ups in the next quarter or two to continue slowly into next year. That's my own prediction on it, and I'm not betting heavy, but I'm not completely out of the markets by any means. Do you have any? I haven't heard any. Honestly, I wanted to tune in for Everybody's saying sell, sell, sell. What the fuck are they talking about? Nobody's talking about I haven't heard any analysis or I haven't seen any, indicators about the sell. Was that a joke that I didn't get, or
I don't know what you're talking about, man. It wasn't here, dude. I, sure, like when it pertains to crypto, um, really, I'm left curving it. I kind of see this little run. I kind of see this little run as a faster version of 2019. So, um, I think for the rest of the year, it's going to be very very reminiscent to 2015, where you're going to have like select sectors pop off more than the majors, especially given that the majors are now, they have the evaluations of companies within the Nasdaq, 10 billion plus, right? So I think this time is a little bit different, but it's going to rhyme. So you already have a taste of 2019. So now it's time for some 2015 action, and perhaps 2023 will add in its own element. But last year wasn't really any different than 2018. You had your early Q1 breakdown, followed by your late Q1 run, your distribution over the spring, and then you make year-to-date lows going into the later parts of Q2, followed by a Q3 run-up. And by the end of Q3, you go back into the mean, right? So just a little bit above the late Q2 lows, right? We were consolidating at 19, 20K around there, sometimes 18K, and then followed by a late Q4 breakdown, which is exactly what we had with FTX, right? But instead of majors taking a dump, it was predominantly altcoins. Altcoins against Bitcoin for the most part were absolutely bleeding against Bitcoin after the July and August rally. It was really nothing different. Like if you look at Avalanche, Solana, Near, Phantom, they all bottomed out in mid-December. All of them bottomed out for the most part in mid-December. Um, but when it pertains to BTC, that bottomed out in late November at 15.3, and ETH bottomed out in June. So separate names bottom at separate times, but you'll always have a bunch of like sectors within the digital asset space that bottom out um, like at different times, right? Like you have the Arbitrum stuff that bottomed out in the summer, some metaverse stuff and meme coin stuff bottomed out in the summer. Like there were a lot of things that bottomed in the summer, fall, and winter, but for the most part, things that are tradable on centralized exchanges, they all bottomed out like early to mid December against Bitcoin, mind you. So yeah, man. Nobody really knows. All we can take is a game of probabilities. So, guys, if you enjoyed the space, feel free to follow us here at and I host these spaces pretty much every day now for the foreseeable future. But as far as the timing is concerned, it will vary. Tomorrow we will be hosting Quicksilver Protocol, which is something that's built on Cosmos. Look forward to that. And then on Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, we have Trader RB. Good friend of the brand, hasn't been up here in a very long time. So look forward to catching up with him. And then on Saturday and Sunday, we've got some devs from the Ethereum side coming in, working on like wallet security and all those things. And perhaps we can bring in Zuzi and Professor Satoshi for a space this weekend. If they're up for it, maybe Saturday or Sunday. I have to check in with this dev I was going to host. We were supposed to do it today, but I had to reschedule because I thought I had something planned out with somebody else. But things happen, and that's why I always encourage you guys. Anytime you're listening to these spaces, I actively encourage you all that when you do follow us here at Because Bitcoin, you turn on bell notifications so that you're always made aware of when our crypto specific spaces go live. And again, the replay of the spaces will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel in about 5 to 10 minutes after the space is concluded. So with that being said, feel free to give all the speakers a follow. Feel free to give a new friend of the show, Professor Satoshi. Thank you for coming up on, brother. It was good having you here. God bless you. Thank you, Avocado Toast, for taking the time out of your night to come up here and join us. Bashara, try to make it tomorrow if you can, dude. It's always good. It's always good talking to you and catching up, brother. And also to our buddy Feel Pain, it's always good to have you here and kind of being my backup on these spaces. And to our listeners, thank you all so much for coming into these impromptu spaces that are pretty volatile with their time and sort of you never know what you're gonna get. So I hope you guys had fun, right? Take care. God bless you, and I'll see you tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Take care, everyone, and thank you all so much for everything.
Take care, brother.
The trading current is just math. It's just math. It has a 95.45% hit rate when we deviate outside of CP2 and CN2. All you had to do is recognize that 95% of the time when we get over here, under this blue line, we get some sort of mean reversion. So let's just assume you long right here. 95 out of 100 times, when I buy this, I'm gonna get some sort of bounce. It's just math. Look what would have happened as we move up. Look at the bounce that came after. And now look where we are. If you had just blindly followed the current, you take all emotions out of it, you say, I'm going to trust the statisticians. You would have bought Dow Jones somewhere down here under 30,000, depending on how you want to measure it from absolute top to bottom, 20% move. We also have multi-time frame alerts. You don't even have to be at your computer on TradingView. You can ping your phone. Now, the current has some really awesome features, and I would urge you guys to join our Discord to get access to it. We give it away for free as a tool to the community. It's just math. There's really no need to overcomplicate things, not even in the slightest.